friends, this is the Bijou Baker. I'm Maria. Today I'm coming at you from a different angle. This video, this is a video that started it all. This is a video that planted the seed to teach you how to do the very basics of baking and cooking and cake decorating. As I'm transferring all my recipes over to a readable format, I'm finding my love for baking all over again, and it's kind of cool. But this video I want to show you how you can create your own recipes. I know, sounds wild, right? But it's incredibly simple. I know I say that a lot, but I only say that because it's true. I'm going to show you my chocolate cake. Oh man, this is probably the best chocolate cake I've had, and I gotta confess, it's a bit addicting. I've had customers who don't like chocolate. I've offered to find them help. Who says a statement like that? They don't like chocolate, and they don't like chocolate cake, but it tickles me when I see them go back for a second piece. So maybe it's not so bad. All right, now when I'm making these recipes and I'm trying to write them down like I was saying, that's really what's taken me so long to do, because I have to dissect each and every one of them to make sure that they're right and then that they're the best recipe for you. I don't like putting out subpar products, and so I absolutely will not give you something like that. So that's why it's taken me so long to do each recipe. And when I come up with something, I'll just start writing down, 1 cup of this, 2 cups of that, 3 drops of this, or whatever it is. And then that's it. I'm done, because I know what to do with it. I know the process. So I'm looking at all these recipes in my book, and I'm going, well, it looks like a shopping list. It looks like a grocery list, not a recipe. So then I have to take what I have and break down every step. So and I don't mind that, and I should have been doing it all along. So when you do your own recipes, break down everything all along so you don't have to fumble like I do. So okay, so with this recipe with cakes, okay, I am not talking about flourless cakes or gluten-free cakes, or nothing wrong with them. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying that I'm not covering those when I'm discussing this. There's let's see, there are four F's in cake baking. And so when you're making up your own recipe, you'll want to make sure you have the 4 F's. You've got flour, flavor, fluid, and fat. And the combination of those, that's where the creativity part comes in. So your flour, all-purpose flour, cake flour, oatmeal flour, almond flour, whatever it is that you make into a flour. Okay, so you have your flour. Some of that can also be flavor. Your flavor can be your vanilla, depending on what you make. Your red velvet, that's a whole different kind of recipe altogether. I'll show you that once. Your flavors, man, that's when it really goes off the charts, and no holds bar with options there, and that's kind of what makes it cool. Your fluid, it can be water, milk, buttermilk. I use coffee in my chocolate because the coffee pulls out a lot of the chocolate flavor. Your fluids, I would not recommend a bottled drink, though some recipes call for that, but then the combination changes. So don't worry about that just now. And this video is really more for my more advanced bakers. So my young bakers and my new bakers, don't let this intimidate you. Just kind of put this off to the side. It's interesting and kind of cool and exciting to know that you can do this, but don't freak out about this, because it's not meant to be scary. It's meant to be exciting and stuff like that. So let's stick with that. Let's see, we got flour, flavor, fluid, and fat, butter, vegetable oil. Uh, you could use bacon grease. You could. I haven't, but you could. And that would cover your flavor as well. Bacon and chocolate. Seriously, very fun combination. All right. This is going to be so hard for me to stay on track. All right, I'll do it. So, with this particular cake, I'm going to show you how to build your cake. Okay, so let's go down and see. I'm going to sift my flour, and there's two kinds of flours in here, as well as my cocoa and my baking soda. And I'm going to stop right here because I wanted to show you something. Because I am going to use coffee, the one trick that I learned that I love. So if you put salt in here, okay, and most recipes should and would call for salt. If you put salt in your dry ingredients, like they always say, put it in there, and then so you now have these specks of salt, thousands of little granules throughout the cake, and so it'll kind of be splattered. Okay, just for the sake of understanding what salt does and what it looks like. I put my salt in my coffee or in my fluid. Sometimes I'll put it in my buttermilk. So it's going to dissolve. So then I've got a salty liquid that's going to cover everything. It's not splattered, it's covering everything. So that's kind of just adding flavor there and enhancing flavor and picking it up just a notch. So, all right, just so you know, that's what I do. All right, so I'm just gonna sift this. I'm afraid I don't have my apron on, so I'm kind of afraid to get it all over my pretty pink. But it's washable, so I don't care. And it's cool to see the bottom of this, okay? You see those granules? Well, the cake is not going to really be that grossly affected by it, but let's just go ahead and smush everything out there. I want a completely clean sieve. Ta-da! Okay, now I've got to go wash my hands. Okay, hands are washed. Now I'm going to talk to you about tools. Now, I'm using a quarter sheet baking pan. The reason for this is because the next video I'm going to show you how to ice a cornered cake. The round ones are a breeze. These little corners can be a little tricky, but when you're the Bijou Baker, you're gonna learn all sorts of tricks around that, and I'm anxious to show you. So all I've done is line it with parchment paper, the exact size of the pan. You know this, right? Just like the round cakes and everything like that. I'm not gonna flour and grease the sides. I'm not gonna put butter in it. I'm not gonna put spray because, as I've said, when it sets and it cools, it's gonna kind of like shrink into itself and pull away from the pan. Perfect. Okay, now whisk me away. I've got a few whisks, and they all have, I want to say they all have their different purposes, but they don't. This one is really neat. It's really fancy. It's really nice. It's too heavy. I hardly ever use it. It's too heavy in my hand. I'm not looking to add more weight than I need to, but it does whisk really well because of that weight and all those prongs. That does whip up a lot of air into it. This one is good, and it's wider, you can see, and it's good for larger projects, and that's good. This one I've had since I was 2, and it is my go-to whisk only because it feels good and it's fast and it's light and it's easy to use. So that's almost always the one I'm going to use. And then this one also, it gives me a lot more prongs here to build up air in there, and it's easy to hold. So when you're purchasing your products to use in your baking tools, keep in mind how they feel in your hand, because you're going to use them. They're going to be in there for a long time. And I challenge you to take 2 or 3 egg whites and just whip them to a meringue. You'll get a completely different understanding of this. Or whipped cream. Whip that up until it's a whipped cream. I'm telling you what, you build some muscle doing that. All right. Now with cakes, I like, you know I love her. You know I love her. But when it comes to my light cakes, not carrot cake. Carrot cake is a much denser cake, so that I'll put her to work. But when it comes to my other cakes, I like touching it. I like feeling it. I like knowing exactly what stage it's at and how much further it's going to go until it's in the right place. You'll learn all this stuff. And again, this is something I recommend you try more than not. Pop in a mixer if you know you got to get it out. Trust me, I understand that. But when you have the time to do this, I recommend it. All right, so, and let's go. All right, so you almost always start with a base. A base could be it's almost often your fat, so your butter or your oil. And that's where I'm starting here. I'm just going to put my oil in. And my sugar. Now when you're making cookies and stuff like that, you whip your butter and your sugar together until it's light and fluffy. You're not going to be able to get this till it's light and fluffy. We just want to get it combined. All right? So I'm going to talk and then show you what I'm doing. All right? So let's see if I can. So it's going to look like wet sand. No structure, no build, no body, nothing. All right. Now I'm going to add, let me see. I'm going to make sure that the salt is, yep, that's good. No salt. I'm going to add the coffee. That's all. It's just a nice running mess. And some regular milk. Well, whole milk. I didn't mean regular. I've got buttermilk later, but this is just whole milk. And your eggs. And the reason you add them one at a time is just to make sure that they're incorporated well. This is a very basic guide to cakes, this process. Unless the recipe reads completely otherwise, you would then be able to take my cookbook with just ingredients and know what to do with them. But this is a very, very basic and easy recipe. Now, here is, well, my favorite part is always the vanilla. I really should maybe one day learn to use a measuring spoon, but it's vanilla. All right, so I've got my dry ingredients and I've got buttermilk. Now, I'm going to alternate, starting with the dry and always ending with the buttermilk. And just about a third at a time is fine. And it does take a while, not a long time, but it does take a little bit longer to incorporate the dry with the liquid. When I put in the buttermilk, you'll see that just blends in really well. Oh my God, that smells good. See that? Hardly. That's it. It just plays along so nicely. This is a very wet cake mix, which tells you that it's going to be very light. That's my favorite. And the last bit of dry. And no, it doesn't matter that the chocolate and the flour separated, because look, can you tell now? Sure can. And the last of the buttermilk. That's it. This gets poured into the baking pan. And I make sure to get every bit. And if you were to make cupcakes with this particular batter, because it rises so well, you only need to fill it about halfway. So what I'm doing is just making sure that it's nice and even and set, and it's ready to go in the oven. This smells so good. Getting back to the cupcakes, it's gonna really rise. Now it looks kind of like it's about halfway high, but it's gonna rise. It's gonna rise well. Cupcakes, because they rise so much, they say to fill your cupcake liner about 3/4 of the way. That depends on the batter. If it's a light liquid batter like this, chances are it's going to rise. And this has a good amount of baking soda, which isn't it's going to lift it, level it. It's going to raise it up. Okay, that hurt. So the more it has, the higher it's going to go. Now, here is a trick for baking a perfectly flat, level cake. I have been doing this. Now, all these things that you know about baking, I learned 350, put it in, and do all those things, and then you get a bubble cake. What happens when the cakes bake? Let me see if I can't show you this. So this baby's in the oven. It's going to start cooking from the outside. As it cooks, it's going to rise a little bit, but then at some point when it's fully baked, it's not going to rise anymore. But the middle is, and then that's going to stop, and then this is going to rise, and then that's going to stop. And so that's where you get that mound, because this is as high as it's going to go. This is still rising until it's as high as it's going to go. And this is still rising, and so on and so on. So you get this mound. Well, I got really tired of those mounds. I mean, after a while, you can only eat so many cut off tops. Well, all right, that's a lie. So you are gonna love this tip. I bake my cakes a lot lower, a lot longer. Now that part might be hard for some of you, but when you see the end result, you'll brush that off. I bake my cakes at 285 degrees. For this I'll probably leave in for like an hour and 10 minutes. I know, but you will have a perfectly level cake. Now, there's another thing if you don't want to do that. There's a couple ways to bake it at 350. All right, there's a product out on the market. I don't know really what it. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it's called, but it's strips as high as the pan of silver heat resistant something or other. I don't know. And so you wet that, and then you Velcro the edges together. And so because that's wet and cool, it's going to help bake it better. That's good. Or because I just I'm frugal like that. You can take an old towel, and if you stitch, adhere two pieces. You want it as high as the pan and as uh, the circumference of the pan, whatever pan size you're making. Stitch some Velcro on each side, or just use a safety pin. Wet it. Don't wring it out, but don't let it soak either, because then the water will drip, and then you've got steam, and you got a completely different dessert altogether. So wet it, wring it enough, and then adhere it to the outside of the cake, and then bake it that way. So there are ways. I'm just telling you, with my experience, 285 degrees for 60 to 70 minutes, or until it's done. If your oven bakes faster, it's not going to take as long. If your oven doesn't, then it's going to take longer. Don't worry about that time. You worry about the doneness. And the doneness is when you take it out and you gently tap the top. If your fingers indent, it's not done. If the cake bounces back, it's done. You can also do a toothpick thingy. That works. All right. That is how you make your own recipe. Again, remember, flour, flavor, fluid, fat. The combination of those, have fun with it and try it and fail, but eat it because it's good. And then you'll know next time, oh, I put too much this or I didn't put enough that. That's the fun part for me. And if you don't want to, then just stick around and I'll share my recipes with you. All right, my friend. Until next time, happy baking.
Ah, that was fun. Don't forget to like and subscribe.